Imagine a corpse that refused to be buried. A dead boy whose spirit came back to expose his killer in front of the whole village. This is not just any story. This is the terrifying, true-sounding tale of Obiora, the corpse that refused to rest.
Welcome to my channel, African Tales by MissBee.
In the village of Opinsuka, Enugu State, life was already hard for many families. But for Mama Obiora, everything changed the day tuberculosis took her husband. It wasn't one of those mysterious sicknesses with no name. No, tuberculosis was treatable, but in their rural area, the hospital was poorly equipped, drugs were scarce, and help came too late. One morning, the man who was supposed to be the pillar of the home breathed his last, leaving behind a young widow and their only child, Obiora, who was just 10 years old. Little Obiora could not fully understand what death meant. He kept asking his mother when his father would return from the journey. The burial was simple and painful. Family members gathered, tears were shed, and the man was laid to rest. But even before the final handshake and condolences ended, his uncles had already descended on the property. They took everything: the small plot of land, the few goats, and every other thing the man had struggled to acquire. In their words, a woman cannot inherit in this family. Mama Obiora and her young son were left with nothing but pain and empty hands. From that moment, life became a daily battle for survival. Mama Obiora worked on people's farms, fetching water and doing menial jobs just to put food on the table. Obiora, though only a child, refused to sit and watch his mother suffer alone. At a very tender age, he started cultivating other people's farms for little pay. When he grew a bit older, he left the farm work and became a bus conductor, shouting at the top of his voice at motor parks while his mates were still wearing school uniforms and learning ABC. Many nights, mother and son would sit outside their small hut under the moonlight. Obiora would hold his mother's hand and say with a child's determination, "Mama, as long as I am alive, I will provide for you and protect you. I will never leave you to suffer." Her mother would cry and reply, "My son, I have failed you. Death has been too cruel to us. You are supposed to be in the classroom, not on the dangerous roads jumping in and out of buses. Promise me, Obiora, that you will not end your life as a bus conductor." They would hold each other and make that promise again and again, as if sealing it with their souls. The boy kept his word. He remained respectful, hardworking, and never gave his mother trouble. But deep inside, Mama Obiora's heart was breaking. She wanted a better future for her only child. Then came that fateful December. The whole village was buzzing with excitement because one of their successful sons had returned from the city. His name was Ozo Egomaka, a wealthy businessman from Abuja who had just been conferred with a prestigious chieftaincy title for his philanthropic works. He built houses for widows, sank boreholes for the community, and helped many young people. People called him Ozo with pride and respect. That Christmas, he distributed bags of rice, wrappers, and money to villagers. Mama Obiora was among those who received gifts. The very next day, with courage born out of desperation, Mama Obiora approached the great Ozo Egomaka. She greeted him respectfully and poured her heart out. "Ozo, please take my son Obiora to the city. Train him in your business. I don't want him to become a village tout. He is a good boy." Ozo listened carefully and asked if the boy himself was aware. When she said yes, he smiled and replied, "No problem. He will serve me for 7 years. After that, I will settle him properly so he can start his own business. Tell him to get ready. I am returning to Abuja on the 10th of January." That decision changed everything. Obiora's life had taken a new turn from the dusty roads of Nsukka to the bright lights of the city. Obiora arrived in Abuja with a mixture of fear and big hope in his young heart. For the first time in his life, he was leaving the village, leaving behind the dusty roads, the noisy motor parks, and the small thatched hut he shared with his mother. As the bus entered the city, the bright lights and tall buildings amazed him. This was the new life his mother had prayed for. Ozoegwamaka's house was big and beautiful, located in a quiet part of the city. The moment they arrived, Obiora was introduced to the other Umu boy, the apprentices who had come from different villages to learn business under the great Ozo, Egwamaka. They were mostly Igbo boys like him, hard-working and respectful. As the latest arrival, he was assigned the task of washing plates after shop hours. Their routine was strict: go to the shop, return home, sleep, and repeat the hustle the next day. No unnecessary rooming, no girlfriends, no distractions. Every Sunday, they all dressed neatly and attended Mass at the Catholic Church. Ozoegwamaka himself was a respected knight in the Order of St. Mulumba. He carried himself like a true gentleman in public, generous, prayerful, and well-spoken. Many people in Abuja respected him. To Obiora, this man was almost like a savior sent from heaven. One evening, after about 1 week in the house, Ozoegwamaka called Obiora into his private sitting room. The boy stood quietly, heart beating fast. Ozo looked at him seriously and said, "Obiora, listen to me very well. No matter what is chasing after your life, never ever open the room on the left side of the east wing. It is boldly written out of bounds on the door. Those before you who disobeyed that instruction did not live to tell the story. Don't say I didn't warn you." The man's voice was deep and heavy. He commanded Obiora to hold his ear as a sign that he had heard and understood. Obiora quickly held his ear and answered, "Yes, sir, I have heard." Ozo continued, "If you still want to go back to the village, there is still time. I can send you back tomorrow." But Obiora shook his head firmly. "God forbid, sir. I will be useful. I came here to learn and to help my mother." Ozo smiled, patted him on the back and said, "Good young man, you have made the right decision." From that day, Obiora became extra careful. He avoided the east wing completely. Life in the house settled into a steady rhythm. During the day, they worked hard at the big motor parts shop. In the evenings, they returned home tired but focused. Obiora sent whatever little money he could save back to his mother in the village through other villagers traveling home. He kept reminding himself of the promise he made to her that he would not end up as a bus conductor. This was his chance to become somebody. 5 full years passed like this. Obiora grew from a small village boy into a tall, responsible young man. He had not returned home even once, following the house rule that apprentices don't go back until they are settled. Only 2 more years remained before his 7 years would be complete. He was already imagining the day Ozo would settle him with money, goods, and maybe even help him open his own small shop. His mother would finally be proud. Their suffering would end. But then, small whispers began to spread. Some of the older Umu boy who had finished their time and others working in neighboring shops started talking. They said Ozoegwamaka was not as holy as he appeared. They claimed he had never truly settled any boy, that he always found one excuse or the other to send them away empty-handed so he could remain the richest. "Be careful," one neighbor warned Obiora. "Start saving your own money secretly. If he chases you away after 7 years, at least you will have something to fall back on." Obiora tried not to believe the rumors at first. After all, Ozo had been good to him. But the seed of doubt had been planted, and fear began to grow slowly in his mind. The fear of wasting 7 years of his life and returning to the village with nothing. Then came the day that changed everything. Ozo had written a big check in the shop but forgot it at home. He sent Obiora hurriedly to go and bring it so he could rush to the bank. When Obiora entered the big house and picked up the check from Oga's room, something drew his attention. As he was about to leave, his eyes turned towards the east wing, the forbidden room, the one marked out of bounds. His heart started racing. What is really inside that room? What if Oga is hiding riches there? What if he is hiding money that should be his? The fear of not being settled after 7 years gripped him strongly. One dangerous thought entered his mind. One thing must kill a man. He slipped the check into his pocket and, against all the warnings, started walking towards the east wing.
Obiora stood in front of the forbidden door, his heart pounding so loudly he could hear it in his ears. The east wing was quiet, too quiet. The bold letters "out of bounds" stared back at him like a warning from the grave. For a moment, he almost turned back. He remembered Ozo's deep voice and the way he had held his ear as a sign of agreement. But the rumors had done too much damage. The fear of returning to his mother empty-handed after 7 long years pushed him forward. One thing must kill a man, he whispered to himself. This could be my gate to wealth and freedom. With shaking hands, he forced the door open. The moment it cracked, a strange, heavy smell hit him, like something rotten mixed with incense. He stepped inside and fumbled for the light switch. What he saw nearly made his legs collapse. The room was a horror. It wasn't a storage room or a secret treasury. It was a ritual chamber. On the floor and against the walls lay several dead bodies in different stages of decay, some already reduced to skeletons, others still having pieces of rotting flesh. Skulls, bones, and strange objects covered in bloodstains filled the corners. Native chalk drawings and evil-looking charms were arranged on a central altar. This was no ordinary room. This was a place of death. Obiora's stomach turned. He nearly vomited. In that terrifying moment, everything became clear. These were the previous Umu boy, the ones Ozo had warned him about, the ones who did not live to tell the story. He had walked into a den of ritual killers. Panic exploded inside him. He turned and ran out of the room as fast as his legs could carry him, forgetting to even close the door properly. His only thought was escape. Nobody saw me, he kept repeating in his mind as he ran out of the house to nowhere in particular. Nobody saw me. I will be fine. But he was wrong. Back at the shop, Ozo Egomaka was attending to a customer when he suddenly grabbed his chest and let out a sharp cry of pain. The man who always looked strong and powerful began sweating heavily. Without saying a word to anyone, he jumped into his car and sped home like a man being chased by death itself. He rushed straight to the east wing, saw the broken door, and knew immediately what had happened. He entered the inner temple, fell on his knees before the chief priest who appeared from the shadows and bowed his head to the ground. Ejo baby wama ilumika, eha. An unclean being has desecrated the altar. He must be sacrificed. His blood will cleanse this place. Ozo Egomaka pleaded desperately. This boy is my relative. If I kill him, people will raise alarm. There must be another way. The chief priest's eyes burned with anger. Geta ina gete. Rules are rules. Disobedience has consequences. Then, just like that, he vanished into the shadows, leaving Ozo with only one order. Find him before nightfall and bring his dead body. Ozo's bodyguards were immediately deployed. They moved like hunters. Obiora had barely spent 30 minutes where he ran to when they grabbed him. He didn't even have time to explain or beg. They took him straight to the house, to that same terrible east wing. That same night, Obiora's young life was cut short in the most painful and wicked way. The rituals were performed, certain parts of his body were harvested for their dark powers, and what remained of his corpse was taken to the morgue. The young boy who had promised his mother he would protect and provide for her was gone,
sacrificed on the altar of another man's greed and blood rituals. Meanwhile, in the village of Opi Nsuka, Mama Obiora was still praying daily for her son's progress, completely unaware that her only child had just been murdered in cold blood. Ozo Egomaka, the respected businessman and knight of St. Mulumba, began preparing his lies. He would travel to the village the following week with a heartbreaking story, a story of a ghastly motor accident. But the gods, as the elders always say, were watching, and the dead, especially those killed unjustly, rarely stay silent. The following week, Ozo Egwamaka made the journey back to Opi Nsuka. He arrived in the village like a respected son returning home, dressed in his expensive traditional attire with his driver and one bodyguard. But this time, he did not come with gifts or smiles. He came with heavy news. He gathered Mama Obiora and the kinsmen under the big mango tree near their compound. With a sad face and a calm voice, he broke the news. Obiora was involved in a ghastly motor accident in Abuja. He did not survive. I am deeply sorry. The words landed like thunder. Mama Obiora screamed and collapsed on the ground. "No, not my only son. Chukwuajo, God forbid," she cried bitterly, rolling in the sand. "I gave you a living child, a breathing, healthy boy. How can you bring me back his corpse after 5 years?" She kept repeating the same words through tears. The pain was too much. She fainted right there and had to be rushed to the small village hospital. While Mama Obiora thought for her life in the hospital bed, Ozo Egwamaka quickly walked with the kinsmen. He brought out wads of naira notes and shared them generously among the key family members. He promised to give Obiora a befitting burial and even settle him financially as he had promised while he was alive. The men collected the money and agreed to support his story. No questions would be asked. The burial date was fixed for the following Thursday. Back in the city, Obiora's corpse lay cold in the morgue. But unknown to everyone, his spirit was restless. On the burial day, tension filled the air. A small convoy left Abuja carrying the casket. Ozo Egwamaka and his chief priest followed closely behind in another vehicle. But this time, as they entered the road leading to the village, something strange happened. The ambulance carrying Obiora's body suddenly stopped moving. The engine kept running, but the vehicle refused to go forward. The driver tried everything, reversing, changing gears, but nothing worked. Ozo quickly summoned his chief priest. The man performed some rituals, muttered incantations, and sprinkled water on the vehicle. After some minutes, the ambulance finally started moving again. The chief priest shook his head and whispered to Ozo, "This boy's spirit is very stubborn. I have never seen anything like this before." When they reached the village, the entire community had gathered. Women were already singing funeral songs. The moment Mama Obiora saw the casket, she burst into fresh tears. She wailed loudly and rolled on the ground, calling her son's name. As the young men prepared to lower the casket into the grave, she suddenly stood up and shouted, "Stop! Open the casket. I want to see my son one last time. Let me see his face." Ozo Egwamaka and the bribed kinsmen quickly refused. "It is better you remember him as he was." But Mama Obiora insisted. As the pallbearers tried to force the casket down, something terrifying happened. The casket became extremely heavy. The 4 strong young men carrying it began to shake. They pleaded, "Please, let us just drop it on the ground." But the casket would not move. It felt like it was glued to the air or filled with stones. Panic spread through the crowd. Ozo Egwamaka's face changed. He quickly called his chief priest to start performing rituals to calm the situation. But nothing worked. The more they tried, the heavier the corpse became. Suddenly, the village chief priest emerged from the crowd. No one had seen him arrive. He pointed his staff directly at Ozo Egwamaka and his chief priest and shouted, "Enough is enough. How many more souls will you people destroy? Confess now while there is still time." Ozo Egwamaka denied everything. "This man is lying. He is jealous of my progress. The boy died in a motor accident. I know nothing." But the village chief priest stood firm. "Obiora's spirit visited me in my shrine last night. He told me everything, how you killed him and sacrificed him in your evil temple in Abuja. He said many other boys you killed are also crying for justice. Their souls cannot rest." At that moment, a strange wind blew across the burial ground. Power left the casket and entered Ozo Egwamaka. The great man fell to the ground, rolling and screaming like a mad person. "Obiora, please spare me," he cried loudly for everyone to hear. "I killed him. It was never supposed to happen. He entered the forbidden room even after I warned him. I pleaded with the chief priest, but the rules demanded his blood. Obiora, have mercy." The whole village stood in shock as the respected Ozo Egwamaka confessed his crimes in public. Obiora's spirit spoke through him. "I will not kill only you. Your entire lineage will suffer, just as you destroyed mine. Your name will become a curse." Right there, in front of the entire village, Ozo Egwamaka fell down and died on the spot. Mama Obiora, still weak, whispered, "My son, you can now rest." Suddenly, the casket became light again. The young men easily lowered it into the grave. The silence that followed Ozo Egwamaka's dramatic death was deafening. The once respected man lay motionless on the ground beside his victim's casket. The entire village stood in shock, many still trying to process what they had just witnessed. The great philanthropist, the knight of St. Mulumba, the man everyone thought was blessed, had been exposed as a cold-blooded ritualist in the most public way possible. The village chief priest remained standing tall, his staff planted firmly in the earth. He addressed the crowd with a calm but authoritative voice. "Today, the ancestors have spoken. Let this be a warning to all who shed innocent blood in secret. The spirit of Obiora has received justice. Now we shall complete his burial with dignity." The young men, no longer struggling with the weight, gently lowered Obiora's casket into the grave. The earth was covered, and traditional burial rites were performed. For the first time since the body arrived, peace seemed to settle over the compound. But Obiora's vengeance was far from over. In the weeks that followed, terrifying news began spreading from Abuja to the village. Ozo Egwamaka's large warehouses mysteriously caught fire in the middle of the night and burned to ashes. His expensive cars, his houses, and every major property he owned suffered the same fate, one unexplained fire after another. Even worse, members of his immediate family started dying one by one under strange circumstances. Some passed away in their sleep. Others fell seriously ill with no medical explanation. Within months, the once powerful lineage of Ozo Egwamaka was completely wiped out. People began spitting on the ground whenever his name was mentioned. His name had truly become a curse, just as Obiora's spirit had promised. Back in the village, Mama Obiora was still deep in mourning when something extraordinary happened one calm night. She had a vivid dream. Obiora appeared to her, looking peaceful and handsome, dressed in white, with a gentle smile on his face. He sat beside her bed and held her hand the way he used to when he was a little boy. "Mama," he said softly, "I have completed my mission. I have taken revenge for both of us. I can finally rest now. But I don't want you to live the rest of your life in sorrow and loneliness. This place you married into has brought you nothing but pain. Now that I am gone, go back to your father's house, remarry and find happiness again. One day, you will have other children, and through them, the promises we made to each other will still be fulfilled. Be happy, Mama. I will always watch over you from the other side." Mama Obiora woke up with tears rolling down her cheeks. But this time, they were not only tears of pain, there was also relief and acceptance. She knew beyond doubt that it was more than a dream. Her son had visited her. The very next morning, she packed her few remaining clothes and belongings into a small bag. She said her goodbyes to a few relatives and left the compound where she had suffered so much. With a heavy but determined heart, she returned to her paternal hometown to begin a new chapter of her life. And that, my people, is the story of Obiora, the good son whose corpse refused to rest until justice was served. A story that reminds us that no matter how hidden evil is, the truth always finds a way to come out.
My people, what is story? Not every African story is war or poverty or AIDS. Some are pure poetry. And this one right here is exactly that. Raw, emotional, spiritual, and deeply haunting. From the beginning, you could feel the pain of Mama Obiora, a woman who had already lost her husband to a preventable disease, only to lose her only son in the most brutal way. What shocked me the most was how Ozo Egomaka lived a double life. In public, he was a respected knight in the Catholic Church, a philanthropist giving out rice and building boreholes, but behind closed doors, he was running a blood ritual empire. This is the scary reality we see too often. People who appear holy in the daytime, but belong to darkness at night. Obiora's curiosity and fear of poverty pushed him to open that forbidden door. Many young boys in apprenticeship today are going through similar situations. Some are suffering in silence, while others are walking into traps they don't understand. And the way the village chief priest played his role, that was powerful. He didn't just show up, he came as the voice of the ancestors and the defender of justice. The biggest lesson from this story is, the dead will not stay silent when injustice is done to them. No matter how powerful or rich you are, no matter how many people you bribe, truth always finds a way to come out. Over-curiosity can destroy a person, but wickedness destroys faster. Parents, be careful who you hand your children over to. And to those doing evil in secret, especially ritual killers, one day, the same blood you shed will rise against you. I can assure you of that. Also, never break the promises you make to your parents. Obiora kept fighting even in death because of the bond he had with his mother. In Igbo culture and many parts of Africa, we believe that when someone is killed unjustly, their spirit, chi or mo, does not rest until justice is served. This is why we have the saying, the spirit of the innocent never dies in vain. This story reflects the fear many villagers have when sending their children to the city for apprenticeship. While some masters are genuine, others are wolves in sheep clothing. It also shows the power of the village chief priest as the spiritual custodian of the land, someone who stands between the living and the ancestors. Mama Obiora's final decision to return to her father's house is also deep. In our culture, sometimes you have to go back to your roots to find peace and a new beginning. Have you ever heard any similar story in your village or community? Do you think Obiora was wrong for opening that door? What would you have done if you were in his position? Drop your thoughts in the comment section.
Let's discuss. If you enjoyed this story, please smash the like button, share it with your friends, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss the next one. This channel is now focused on bringing you real, powerful, and authentic African stories. Drop Obiora in the comments if you want part 2 or similar stories. Thank you for watching. And remember, whatever is done in the dark must surely come to light.